So I'm here today to present a talk called Game Design is Business Design. This is a talk that I started giving just about a year ago, given it at the East Coast Games Conference, GDC Online, GDC Europe, given it privately to companies. I've done training sessions, and each time it's new content, so if you've seen it online, there's a lot of new stuff here. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Ethan Levy. I am a 10-year veteran as a game designer and producer. In that time, I have contributed to 30 games in roles big and small. I worked at EA and BioWare for about 4 years, where I did the Dragon Age, Flash, and Facebook games. And I left about a year ago to found a startup called Quarter Spiral. I also spend a portion of my time doing consulting. I've worked with companies like TinyCo, with Armor Games, Red Bull. So let me talk a little bit about why I put this talk together. My goals for you at the end of this is for you to all be capable of better freemium design and better communication in your teams. In the packaged good world was a lot different from the freemium world. And quick show of hands, how many people in the audience have released a game with in-app purchases? Okay, pretty good number. And how many are working on a game with in-app purchases right now? And how many people think in-app purchases are evil? That's fair. And I am not going to refute you or argue with you in that. I actually think it's a very valid point of view. I was having dinner with a friend last night, and he said, it's very hard to design a game with in-app purchases without bending the game design and somehow compromising the game design towards in-app purchases. And I think that he was very right in that regard. But you know, when I used to do box games, I didn't really think about how the games got to the store. When I wrote a design document, a shipping crate or a factory or a truck did not factor in at all to a single line I would write. But nowadays, I think a lot about servers. Thinking about servers and the way they work figures heavily into game design in this world of freemium. I used to not really think about in-store promotions and co-marketing events with GameStop and Best Buy. Like, this was a marketer's job. This was not my job as a game designer. But a big part of what I spend my time on is how you market yourself within your game, how you even market the ability to spend money. And what has changed is that as game developers, we are business designers now. We are not just making fun, right? We actually have to think about marketing, think about distribution, think about all the things that other people used to do so that we could slap a $60 price on the cover and really out of sight, out of mind. The other part of this is about team communication, because a lot of teams now, and if you basically have the luxury to be working on a multi-person team, you may have product managers, producers, designers. Some companies I've talked to, I would say there are about 30 product managers for every designer in the company, whereas I've been on a team with 7 or 8 designers and 1 product manager. And traditionally, I have found that coming from 2 very distinct disciplines, they may have difficulty communicating. Product managers, the designers in the room, especially if they're more cynical, may think, you know, all they're here to do is they don't really understand my game, they don't really understand my design, and they're just copying features from Zynga Games or now from Rage of Bahamut, and they just want me to put all these features that don't make any sense into my game. And game designers are they're very afraid of in-game purchases. A lot of people I talk to, they're afraid of putting this in, and they're afraid of marketing themselves. And I can understand that. It's hard to be aggressive. And my whole point of this talk is to enable better communication amongst teams, specifically around freemium design. The first point I would like to make is that emotion is the key to monetization. If you are doing a freemium game, in general, there is no reason to spend money. If you are patient, you will get everything or close to everything for free. If you don't care about having the most powerful item, if you don't care about dominating the leaderboards, you can have a lot of fun and a great experience over many, many months and years. The key as designers is to think about what emotions are we going to monetize in our game and what emotions are right for the players we are targeting. So I'm going to go through some emotions. I'm not going to go through all possible monetization emotions, and given the hand raising earlier, I expect that you will all be very familiar with the various features I'm talking about. This first one I want to talk about is impatience. This is Clash of Clans by Supercell. I expect pretty much everyone in the audience to be familiar with this game. It's a city builder. It's got real world timers. Everything I do takes time in the game. It takes both resources and real-world time. And real-world time I like to think about as a currency. So anytime I do something, I've got a little timer. This is me making some archers, I believe. And I can speed things up, right? If I'm willing to wait 15 minutes, if I'm willing to engage multiple times a day, then I'll just wait. I'll actually maybe stack 5 or 6 different games and go back and forth playing all of them. But impatience is probably one of the most familiar things you'll see in freemium game monetization. Envy. Envy is a very powerful emotion. I'm not a car person, I'm not a tuner, right? Like, I know lots of people are, and they're really, really into cars. And what I find is that if you are into cars, you are really into hot cars. Like, there's a lot of fantasy built into playing games like CSR Racing or like Gran Turismo, where you get the experience of being able to access cars which cost many times what you make in a year that you will never have the opportunity to experience. I think the fact that in CSR Racing that it's branded cars and licensed cars that people have real-world emotional attachment to is one of the keys to its success. And the other part of it, like, envy doesn't really work in a bubble. You have to be envious of someone. And so I really like that before any multiplayer race, it shows you your opponent's car. And so it really creates that same sort of brand envy for the hot BMW that you might see in the real world. Dominance. So I would say that about 50% of my work is explaining to people why Bejeweled Blitz is awesome and showing them that they should copy things directly from it. Bejeweled Blitz is one of my favorite cross-platform premium games, and dominance plays a big role in it. The core loop of Bejeweled Blitz is that I match 3, and then I see a leaderboard. And after I see a leaderboard, I see a screen which allows me to purchase consumables with in-game currency. That is it. It is play, see the leaderboard, see the opportunity to spend. I think it's brilliant, right? If you're willing to have a low score, you don't need to spend money on Bejeweled Blitz. But Bejeweled Blitz makes a lot of money, and it's because they are selling things that allow you to top your friends. It kind of plays on this emotional feeling we all have, like, oh, Greg Bliss, I'm better than Greg Bliss. I know I'm better than him. Why didn't I score higher? Oh, I better spend my 95,000 coins on the Phoenix Prism to prove in this game for this week that I'm better than Greg. I think Bejeweled Blitz does a really great job of it's a fun, simple game you can repeat over and over again, and its evergreen success is built on that base of fun. Accomplishment, this is a screenshot from Bubble Witch Saga by King.com, which was first a huge Facebook hit and is now a huge mobile hit. And in the core loop of that game, you're playing your bubble shooter, and on each level you can earn 1 to 3 stars. And the stars are shown on the map, which is really nice. And my fiance, when she plays this game, will not allow herself to move on to the next level until she's 3-starred a level. The star ratings in this game plays on the same sort of feeling of accomplishment as trophies in PSN. So the star ratings, at first it's really easy to get free stars and everything, but as you go on, you really have to grind and get further in the game to unlock some of the consumables in order to win the 3 stars. Or if you really demand of yourself that ding of accomplishment of getting perfect on every level, you might have to pony up a couple dollars for in-game purchases. Last one I like to bring up is exhilaration. How many people played Magic the Gathering or any other physical collectible card game? Yeah, I was, as a teenager, definitely a whale for Magic the Gathering. I spent a couple $1,000s on it in a couple years. To be a very poor tournament player, I was horrible. Like, poor at the game and in the wallet, actually. So there are games, and this is The Last Stand, Dead Zone, and they copied the supply crate mechanic from Team Fortress 2, which is you're in the world, you find a crate, and if you want to open it, you need a key, and the keys are purchased. And the game is doing something on the order of 450,000 MAU and has sold over 500,000 keys to these crates. And these crates they have publicly available list of what the items are in the crate that you could possibly get. It does not tell you the percentages of which ones are rare, but you can see which the ones you want are. And my feeling is that this sort of mystery box mechanic is very similar to opening a pack of Magic cards, right? There's a great moment of tension and release because you know there's one rare item in every pack. So really when you spend your $3 or $5 or $20 on a discontinued set, you're going through looking for your one rare card. You're turning each card over going, is this it? It's not it. Is this it? It's not it. Here's my rare card. And then you look at it and wonder if it's the one you wanted or not. And if it's not, you buy another pack. That exhilaration, like it is fun to open the mystery box. And Dead Zone does a great job of this in a number of games, use this sort of mystery box mechanic. So let's talk about tying it all together. I'm going to talk about Dragon Veil for a little bit and how it plays on some of these emotions. Dragon Veil, as probably everyone in the room knows, is the paragon of success. It is a city builder game with the breeding mechanic. Last year, it was the number 4 top-grossing iPhone and number 1 top-grossing iPad application. And as a core loop, I'm sure, a year ago when I started doing this talk, the core loop concept was still a little confusing to people. I think probably everybody in this room is fairly well versed in what a core loop is. I like to visualize core loops as part of the design process. And a big reason why I like to is to figure out where in that loop you are monetizing. And why I started doing that was because I worked on a game called Dragon Age Legends, and as I was starting to work on the next game, I was trying to figure out why Dragon Age had not been as financially successful as we had been hoping to. And for the first time, and this was after over a year of development and over a year of live operations, I visualized the core loop. And it was kind of like, well, this is what the player is doing, this is their path of least resistance, and this is what we're monetizing. Oh. It was like this great moment of revelation. So Dragon Veil is pretty simple. You build your park, your sinks are gold and real-world time, and you get food. The other section of the game is breeding dragons and trying to unlock all the rare dragons. So you spend your food to level up your dragons. Your dragons create gold over time. That is it. And the whole Elder game is around breeding the dragons to try and make the rarer and rarer combinations. In general, to monetize a freemium game, you have to put some form of friction in. These are what I call gates. So it's easy to try and get really complex when you know your game design really well. And there are a lot more sinks, taps, and gates in Dragon Veil that I'm showing on this slide. But I'm just trying to show kind of the hard gates that really block your ability to progress in the game. So Dragon Veil does a great job of monetizing around that core loop. Every game session, I'm setting multiple appointments, and I have the opportunity to spend the premium currency to get over my impatience gates. The whole game mechanic is about breeding these rare dragons. And so you breed 2 dragons together, and you get a timer. And then you see an egg. And if you're not the type of player who likes to go on the Dragon Veil wiki pages or look it up, a lot of times you'll see a graphic for an egg that you've never seen before, and it's got a little 8-hour timer on it. And that, I think, is an exhilaration mechanic very similar to the supply crates I talked about earlier, because you are for 8 hours in anticipation of what happens when you open that egg. And then you get maybe a really rare dragon, and you're really excited, or you get a not-so-rare dragon, and you go immediately to the breeding cave and start again. But I love, actually, the combination of impatience with exhilaration. Like, oh, here's this new shiny thing I haven't seen. I can't wait to open it. Oh, there's a 24-hour timer on it. Maybe I should spend some money and get it instantly. Events. I will talk about events a little bit later in the talk. They have rare, limited-time dragons. They released one, I think, every month. And as you'll see a little bit later, pairing events with new items for purchase is really powerful for boosting your game's monetization. I don't know how to phrase this as an emotion, but I find that people who love these city builder games, it's about control a lot. They like to have a little sandbox where they are in control of everything, and it makes them feel very relaxed. Somebody asked how you design games when you're not the core audience for the game. So I spent, I believe, a year and a half, maybe a little bit more at Play First, where I spent a lot of time making games that were primarily for women 35 to 50, right? So that was really far away from me as a fresh out of college guy. And the best way for me to learn how to make games that would be successful for that audience. The first was user tests, and these can be formal user tests where you've got people on one side of the class and you're on the other and you're listening to everything they say. These can be putting a game you're working on or a game you have made in front of somebody and watching them play and just talking to them about it. So when I talk about control, I learned that, I believe it was a Diner Dash focus test, because someone was like, oh, you know, I used to be a waitress and I love playing Diner Dash. It's so relaxing. Well, why is it relaxing? That doesn't make any sense to me. I've never worked in the service industry, but if I had, I imagine I wouldn't want to play a game about it. And I remember very vividly someone saying, it reminds me of a simpler time in my life when I was in control of everything, right? And that was like this key moment of insight. And as I've watched people play Farmville, as I've watched them play Dragonvale, this is what I hear over and over again. I have an incredibly busy life. I feel like things are spiraling out of control. This is my little 5 minutes every couple hours where I feel calm. So to the question I got earlier, designing games for an audience that's not you, it's about talking to people who are in that audience. And the other thing, a lot of times I have to bang my head against a game and play it over and over and over again, even though I don't really enjoy it. And eventually, if I hit my head against that brick wall enough, I'll understand what I think it is that is appealing about that game. Because there are a lot of games that are very successful that within 5 minutes I generally go, I wouldn't play this as a player. Like, this is a waste of my very precious free time. But you just have to keep engaging. All right, let's talk a little bit about making monetization accessible. Something that I find pretty common in games. There have been a couple high-profile success stories, or high-profile failure stories on really good games that I enjoy a lot, and I'll talk about them here. And I think something they do is not making purchasing presents. Ease of access. So this is a screenshot from a game I worked on, Dragon Age Legends. I feel like if I'm going to point out things that games could have done better, it's good to show something I could have done better first before talking about other people's work. This is a screenshot from when it first launched. If you look at that bottom bar, there are 8 blue buttons, and I guarantee you no one in the audience can point to the button that turns into somebody giving me money. It does not stand out. And something that I heard that was very painful when I would talk to other people within EA, they would say, hey, and they would say, hey, I really love Dragon Age Legends. I enjoyed playing it. I wanted to spend money, and I could not figure out how to spend money. And the thing is, these were males 35 to 50. So I know they have a lot of disposable income, and they tend to spend disposable income on role-playing games. And my game did not make it clear to them where they could pay for the food that I eat. So we redesigned the UI, and even in the still image, there's one red button that clearly stands out on the bottom. That's the Give Me Money button. And in-game, if you go play the downloadable single player, I believe you'll see that it actually animates. It's the only button that actively draws attention to itself. Something I talk to game developers a lot about is making purchasing present. How can you make it clear that there is the ability to spend money in your game? And for me, this is all about figuring out the core loop and figuring out where in the game you can tactfully put the buttons that allow a player to spend their premium currency. What I've started telling people is to think about it like advertising. Who's released a game that was ad-supported in this room? Okay, so you're very familiar with that it takes thousands of impressions to make tens and hundreds of dollars with ads. Your game is no different. You have to advertise the ability to spend money. You have to make a lot of impressions of the ability to spend money, and you have to do it in a way that is not jarring to the experience. This is a screenshot from War Commander by Kixeye. This game taught me a lot. I think they do a very excellent job of this. Because in Dragonvale, which I showed earlier, you buy a building and then you have to click on it again to see the button that allows you to finish it instantly for premium currency. In War Commander, every time you buy or upgrade a building, it shows you the real world, or it shows you the earned currency cost, the amount of time it would take, and it has one button, and right next to that button, it has the finish instantly for 2 Facebook credits button. They didn't create an extra dialog box, they didn't pop up. Yellow does draw a little bit of attention to itself, but I think this is a very tactful way of making the ability to spend clear. And something that I like to say in these talks is that, part of why I give them is that I want to help more game developers make more money with their freemium games. And I'll spend an hour with just about anybody. One person I talked to recently is Mark Johnson of Focus Apps. He saw a truncated version of this talk, and we grabbed coffee in the city. We're both in San Francisco. And I was playing their game, Hit Tennis 3, and I pointed this out. I pointed out a place where I thought it would be really valuable they had consumable items that they sold, and they had a core loop that involved playing, going to a metagame, playing around a tennis, going to a metagame. And I said, I really think that every time before a player goes to the game, they should see that consumables options as a pop-up. Right now, it would take me 4 clicks off the main path to be able to spend currency on consumables. And I got an email from him a little bit later that he said it was okay for me to share this stat. They put that feature in the game, and they're incredibly good about A/B testing, and in-app purchases went up 80%. Who here would not like in-app purchases in their game to go up 80%? I mean, it was the single greatest point of validation I've gotten so far when talking directly to people about it. And I have to say, Mark has a blog, markj.net, where he is very generous with the data on Hit Tennis 3, on the tactics they've used to climb the charts. I really suggest going there. So, very important for the monetization of your game is to teach players how to spend and teach them the value of that spend. One of the games that I first noticed this in, doing a really excellent job, is Zuma Blitz. I think that if in your onboarding process you have not taught a player how to spend money in your game, you have failed. An onboarding process doesn't mean that you have to force them to spend premium currency 20 times in the first 5 minutes. It just means somewhere in the first couple days you have to teach the player how to spend. So Zuma does what I think is a great job of this. This is me maybe 15 or 20 minutes into the experience. As you can see, there's a large lock down at the bottom, creating kind of some anticipation. I wonder what's there. I hit level 5 and I level up, and it says, oh, hey, you've unlocked a new thing. You now have access to the temple and to bombs. And it immediately takes me to the store. It forces me to go to the temple. It drops the price on bombs to 0, and I go into the game, use bombs, have more fun. So now I instantly know where I go to spend money and the value of spending that money. And, I'm kind of not the biggest fan of these sorts of tutorials where you block everything out on the screen and just show an arrow on a very small area. I don't have any A/B test to prove or disprove this, but I feel like as a player, that leads to not digesting the screen at all. But that aside, it's very important that you teach players how they spend money. Otherwise, they're very unlikely to. And they ought to have more fun as a result of spending money. All right, this is the thing that people who feel queasy about in-game monetization will probably feel the most queasy about, and I respect your opinions. But let me just say that it is important for your game to be successful to allow for the possibility of someone to spend a lot of money. And we generally refer to these people as whales. So let me talk about some of the tactics I think are important to put in your game to allow someone to spend hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of dollars. The first is that it's really important, in my opinion, to allow for a possibility of infinite monetization. I am constantly talking about consumables. And the reason is because I think there has to be something in your game that someone who is cash rich and loves your game and wants to spend money can buy every session for 1,000 sessions and have fun. Something we did in Dragon Age that I, in retrospect, kind of wish we hadn't was we sold $13 swords that were way too powerful. So there's nothing wrong with permanent goods. You can make a lot of money, and a lot of people like buying permanent goods. But we sold a $13 sword at level 8, for example, that when you bought, you didn't need another $13 sword until level 45. That's how powerful it was. So we made a lot of money on those $13 swords, but we could have made more money in smaller increments because very few of those people who bought it at level 8 were still playing by level 45 when they might even need to level up their gear. Temple Run and Bejeweled Blitz are 2 games I point to a lot as just doing a really great job of having consumable economy, and I think at this point everybody should know how successful Temple Run and Temple Run 2 are. But very similar to Bejeweled Blitz, you can buy consumable boosts to increase your score before every round of play with the currency you earn, and you can also purchase that currency. And it's important that, in general, these sorts of boosts don't allow you to earn more additional currency than they cost. Having a social elder game is one of the best things you can do, especially if you're more on the core end. At GDC Online, Pete Holly revealed a really crazy stat, which is their game is kind of a Mafia War style game with real-world location. And 6 months into the game, they released guilds and the ability for guilds to fight each other. And their engagement doubled and their revenue tripled. 6 months in, it revolutionized their game and their product roadmap. I believe that they just instantly threw out everything they thought they were going to work on and focused all of their efforts, most of their efforts from there on these fights. So luxury goods, I often talk to developers about their pricing and about both the pricing of in-game items and about the currency packages they are offering. This is a headline from when Glue put a $500 in-app purchase in their game. And the thing is $500 for a single item is probably on the high, extremely high end. I'm not telling you have to do that. But if you don't have a $10 item, a $20 item, a $50 item, you will never know if someone is willing to spend that much money at a single purchase. I think you will be afraid that you will alienate your audience. And what a lot of people have found is that their audience likes and even demands these sorts of items. So I think having that sort of interaction with somebody who spends a lot of money in your game, loves it, and wants more, will convince you, hopefully, that you're doing it right. Similar on currency packages. Again, this is Dead Zone. The package on the far left is, I believe, $1 of real-world currency. $5? Okay. $5 on the left, $100 on the right. I know a lot of people are queasy about asking for $100 at a time for a freemium game. But if you don't ask, you will never find out if people want it or not. And if your game is successful and if your audience is the type of audience that monetizes, what you will find out is that there are people who are willing to spend $100 at a time, and they're willing to do it over and over and over again. Last thing I'll talk about is weekly events. This is some screenshots from FIFA Ultimate Team by EA. In their fiscal year 12 earnings statement, EA touted Ultimate Team as one of the paragons of their digital transformation, saying that it had done $108 million in microtransaction revenue. And something they do a lot of things very well, and one of the things they do very well is they have a weekly event, and that weekly event corresponds to putting new items on sale, new limited time items that are somehow, and these are players that are relevant to that event. And this pairing of fun event that keeps the community engaged along with new items for sale can create a lot of revenue. In a talk just yesterday on Modern Wars Live Ops, they said they have their baseline revenue on their average day or at a time when they're not running events, and they make 50% of their revenue from those times that they're running events, 50% above their baseline, if I understood it correctly. So the pairing of events with items for sale are really powerful. I'm going to talk a little bit about actual process, how you can put these theories into practice. So I'm going to talk about my sample game. I love Smash TV. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And let's say I had somehow acquired the rights to Smash TV and I was bringing it to mobile and I was making it freemium. I am making Smash TV Saga. So the classic score-based arena shooter reimagined for mobile, a game played in bite-sized sessions for high score where you compete against friends' scores, earn achievements and medals. So this is something, if you've seen talks from other former EA people, you'll hear a lot within EA. There's the statement, the X statement. What is your quick, encapsulated, punchy sentence that describes your game? A good example of a meaningless X statement would be Return of the Arcade Classic. That might be a good marketing statement, but as a game designer, that doesn't help me make decisions. A more meaningful X statement would be compete and cooperate in an over-the-top reality TV shooter. That's clunky and it's not memorable, and in fact, I don't think it's a very good X statement, but it's a little bit more meaningful because I can make decisions about what features to put or not to put in my game based on that single sentence. Compete and cooperate, over-the-top reality TV shooter. Something else I like to do and this is all part of writing what I call a feature brief, game treatment. It's about a 2 to 5 page document that outlines the game. I like to do, I think in terms of game design documents, you get about 80% of the effort, 80% of the value from 20% of the effort. I used to write 75-page documents, and I don't anymore because I find that when you get to implementation, they're generally outdated. So I try and focus on really small documents, like a 2 to 5 page document to outline the game, and then 1 to 2 page documents for features. So something I do, analogs, analogs, and leaps of faith. I stole this idea from a book called Getting to Plan B that I really like. Analogs are successful games you want to be like. Analogs are similar games you want to avoid. Leaps of faith are elements unproven in the marketplace that you believe, that are core to your game being successful. So for Smash TV Saga, my analogs might be Ratchet & Clank for its over-the-top weapons and leveling weapons, and Bubble Witch Saga for its metagame that I think does very well. Things I want to avoid are Smash TV arcade game, right? That arcade game forced you to put a quarter in roughly every 30, 45 seconds. It was kind of like Super Hexagon, but with quarters. I don't think that would fly today. SimCity Social, I think, is a great game. It does a lot of things very well, but there are a lot of the things in that game that people expect when they are playing a social game, when they're talking about why they don't like social games, and I'm going to avoid some of those more common social network game features. My leap of faith: mobile tablet players crave synchronous multiplayer. I looked at the 100 top-grossing games on the App Store last night. I can't claim to have played all of them, but I'm fairly certain none of them have synchronous multiplayer as a core feature. So this is my leap of faith. In making this game, I believe this to be true. Then what I like a team to do is to write what I call a monetization philosophy document. This ties into the ideas earlier. Identify what your player type is and identify a small number of monetization emotions that you think are core to those players. Emotions should be a razor you use to choose whether or not to keep or cut a feature. When you're designing a game, it's easy to come up with tons of great ideas for great features. And the question you have to ask yourself is this a great feature for this game, or is it a great feature for another game? This is a tool that I think will help. So there's a template for one of these documents on the website. For this game, it's a core-facing game. Dominance and achievement, those are my 2 monetization emotions. So I talked a lot about core loops, so I'm not going to read this much to you, but I also think part of writing that those first sets of documents is doing a core loop, determining what your sinks and taps in your economy are, and what the path of least resistance for players are going to be. This is the core loop for Smash TV Saga. You can look at it online. Another thing you might want to do is to make a business model canvas. This is an idea I think I heard about in a TED Talk or in an animation on the web that I thought was awesome. It's an interesting tool to help you to visualize your full business model. And when I was talking before about how, as game designers, our lives have changed, if I look at the business model canvas, and this took me like 15 minutes to fill out, it's not very arduous, and I think it's very insightful. But as a game designer, I used to only focus about the top left. Like I said, I didn't care about supply chain. I found filling this out to be incredibly insightful for the first couple times of trying to visualize a freemium design game as a service. I've got a link to this as a Google spreadsheet that you can access. As I said, each feature, I like to do a feature brief. This is a 1 to 2 page document that does not outline every single interaction of the feature, but it helps guide the feature. What is the high concept? What are the success metrics? Maybe a mock-up. What are the sinks and taps? And what's the description of the feature? So let me tie this all together, talk about 2 features and how I would use my monetization philosophy to keep them or cut them. So one feature for this game where I've got a shooter, top-down shooter, and a metagame. A potential feature would be the Smash Pad. So in Smash TV, you're always, in the classic game, you're earning toasters and TVs and money and cars and all these luxury goods because it's a reality game. So why don't I let you keep those goods and decorate a Smash Pad? This is where you have all your stuff. You can visit other people's Smash Pad. You can click on their items and choose to blow out or bro out. You can like sit down and chill at their sweet couch and drink a beer, or you can hide a dynamite in their bookcase. This is heavily inspired by SimCity Social. This feature is getting rejected. And it is being rejected because this is a feature about vanity more than anything, and creating envy and trying to make players visit each other's houses and buy cool-looking stuff. This is a game about dominance and achievement, and a feature that's primarily about vanity isn't making the cut. Now, something I forgot to say, why I like having the monetization philosophy is because I think it's important to write out your strategy. Your strategy might change once your game gets in real users' hands, and that's okay. Rewrite your document based on those new realities. But if you don't have a strategy that you've set out on paper that you've been using and following, it makes it much harder to make a clear decision about how to change when things aren't working right. Anyways, so second feature, phone a friend. So in level, here I am running around shooting things. I've got 3 little phone a friend buttons. These are super abilities with the cooldown timer. For an example, I might be able to tap the lifeline button to use the lifeline phone a friend and instantly get 200 health. Using phone a friend costs a smash token. That's the premium currency I earn. That's the premium currency I mostly buy. Sometimes I earn when I level up. This feature is definitely getting accepted because this is a feature that allows a player to earn a higher score. It allows them to complete their achievements. It is a feature that players who are not spending money can access because they will be earning Smash tokens over time, and it'll help them have more fun. Okay, last thing before I do questions. How much can I make? There are a lot of headlines about hyper-successful games. CSR Racing making $12 million a month. When I started doing these talks, it was Supercell doing $500,000 of revenue in a day. Now it's Supercell doing $1 million in revenue a day, and the Puzzle and Dragons number is even more gonzo. But these are the outliers. These are the super successes. There have also been some really heart-wrenching stories of freemium games that have not been successful. There's a really great story of Gasketball by Mike and Greg, which I think is a great game. And the headline was Going Broke with Success, How an App with 200,000 Downloads Led to Developer Homelessness. Another game that made a lot of headlines, and Punch Quest is fantastic. If you haven't played it and you like side-scrollers and brawlers, I really suggest it. I bought it, I spent money in it, I think it's great. And it was a rare public case of starting freemium, going paid with premium transactions in it, and then I believe going back to freemium. And I follow Rocket Cat on Twitter, and I believe that they've been happy with where it is right now, and it's doing much better than at the time of this headline calling it a financial flop. So ask yourself, how many players, what are the elements that determine how much money my game can make? How many players will I get? How many of these players will I convert into paying users? What lifetime value do I expect from an average player? How much will I pay to platform holders? These are some of the key questions. So at first I was going to give you another Google Doc. This is like a super simple forecast I did with only the most basic elements in it. And on the left it shows kind of a delusional estimate. I'm going to release my freemium game. It's going to hit 25 million installs, and I'm going to make tons and tons of money. It was kind of what are the installs and a conversion rate in ARPU I need to make over $12 million. Since I am a game developer and I like tinkering, I thought it would be more fun to make something a little bit interactive. This is a glorified spreadsheet called Forecast Quest. I've been working on it for the past week, and it was way over scope, and I'm only delivering about 10% of the features that I wanted to. But it is up and live at apps.facebook.com/forecastquest, and again, that link is on the blog. And if you like it, please email me, tell me what you would like added to it, because I made this as a tool for game developers. So let me just get it in the monitor real quick. Okay, so it's up on Facebook. It's an HTML5 thing. And what it is you have two tabs, your sales tab, your cost tab, and you've got sliders on each tab. So here you go. This is the sales tab. You've got sliders. A lot of these are split because I wanted it to be relevant for indies and big games. So this install slider, the first half of the bar goes through 100,000 installs, and then it quickly goes up to 50 million installs. There are little info buttons, and if you roll over, it'll tell you how I am defining each one of these things. Companies will have their different definitions here, but play around with it, look at the different installs and conversion rates, but it's a tool to help you understand how these different factors result in different levels of return on investment. So I hope you like it. If you do, please email me about it and let me know what you do or do not like. So that is the end of my talk. Thank you so much.